Sometimes intense grief and crying can sound like laughter. It can feel like laughter. That was one of those moments. I'm like, wow, this is strange. Okay, I recognize the relationship of these two things. Okay, they're not necessarily separate from each other. They're combined. When I'm in this experience again, let me pay attention to that. Let me honor that. And let me just be it.
Welcome to It's Both, the podcast for people living in the gray. I'm your host, Nikki P., a therapist and storyteller who believes that life isn't either or. It's both. And each week we dive into real stories about holding multiple truths, building resilience, and making sense of life's messy moments. Today, I'm sitting down with Khalil Ekulona, award-winning host, journalist, and producer whose work spans public radio, television, and digital media. You may know him from This Is Nashville or No More Normal, but Khalil has interviewed thousands of people over the years with curiosity, compassion, and humor. In today's conversation, we talk about Khalil's experience with holding the bothness in his life. We also talk about being led by inspiration, not ambition, holding loss and joy at once, why reflection and wisdom from elders matters, and the power of presence, curiosity, and community when life feels heavy. So if you've ever needed permission to hold two truths at once and still move forward, you are in the right place. So let's jump in. Welcome, Khalil. So good to see you.
Good to see you too, Nikki. How's it going?
Great. I'm just so honored and excited to have you here and looking so forward to our conversation today. And before we jump in, I would just love it if you could tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, me, Khalil Ekulona. Well, human being, Gen Xer, American through and through. I'm living out here in Nashville, Tennessee. Recently finished up serving as the inaugural host of the daily live talk show on WPLN called This Is Nashville. We talked about anything and everything Nashville and Middle Tennessee, also national and global events as well. Kind of been doing a lot of different things my entire life. I'm a person who's kind of led by inspiration more so than ambition, and done a bunch of things. I've been an educator, hip hop musician, worked on film and television sets as a producer, just kind of into a lot of different things. I'm a cat dad. I've got 3 cats. They are outside somewhere doing their thing in the neighborhood, either sleeping or charming some neighbor. Yeah. And, easygoing person, got a lot of creative ideas, and really excited and happy to be here with you to talk.
Oh, I'm excited too. And I love that. It's funny. So many people have such a hard time with that question. When I ask, tell me about yourself, they're like, oh, I don't know, like, who am I? But I love you gave a little bit of everything, a little bit of what you've done, but also, things like you are following to be inspired. And I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's who we are. A lot of times you get asked that question and you think I have to give them my LinkedIn resume
Yeah.
in person. And it's not, because, your accomplishments. And one thing that I've learned, I've before I came to Nashville to work on This Is Nashville, I was at KUNM in New Mexico. And I've been in broadcasting and interviewed a lot of people over the past 10 years. People with genius level intellect, but no one has figured it all out. And it's important because what you do for a living, I believe, can be entirely separate from who you are as a human.
And I think that's so true most of the time, because I think what brings us to life is oftentimes not what can bring us money. Now, sometimes you get lucky and you could do both, but from a lot of people that I've met and in my own experience, yeah, I think you're right. It's something we do. It's not a show of who we are necessarily. So let's jump in. I'm excited to talk today. This podcast is all about the bothness, which I'm making it a word because that's just, I think it needs to be a word, the bothness of life. And the tension of feeling multiple things, multiple thoughts, feelings, even beliefs at the same time in the same moment that even sometimes can be contradictory. And so how has this shown up for you, this idea of bothness in your life? Talk to me about what that looks like for you.
It really shows up a lot. I think about one moment in specific that really allowed me, I call it a growing point for me. In the place of anticipation, I really firmly believe, my parents taught my siblings and I, like, hey, you're born, you're going to live through life, you're going to go through things, you're going to come with a way to accept what you've gone through, and then your life is going to be over, essentially, to paraphrase the many, many years of lectures they gave us on that topic. Yeah. It is. And so it was September 22nd, 2019. I had just been hired on in Albuquerque, New Mexico to work for KUNM. I had done broadcasting television, morning magazine television. It was nothing, no hard hitting news at all. There's a show called Good Day New Mexico. We came on after Kathy Lee and Hoda and before Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
it's back to school. These are the things you need to get. You know, it was that type of stuff.
Yes.
It was a lot of fun. Talked to a lot of celebrities and a lot of my sports heroes. Then I worked for PBS, and that got me under the attention of NPR. So September 22nd is my birthday. A sibling calls me up, and I'm thinking it's an early, very weirdly, very early birthday call.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out that my brother-in-law was killed in a car accident in Malaysia. That's the day. That was a Sunday. On Tuesday, I start my first day at KUNM to begin training. And then on that Saturday, so 6 days later, in Albuquerque, they have a festival called Somos. It is the biggest festival of the year. I'm a hip hop artist. One of my monikers is Pope Yes Yes Y'all. And I was performing at the main stage at a really nice time slot. Not the closer, but close. And it performed in front of 5,000 people. So it was going to be the largest amount of people I would have performed for. All of these things in 6 days, you know? And I'm thinking about it. And some people a few of my good friends kept asking me, am I okay? Am I able to do this? And I have to do this. These things happened. Let me adapt and adjust to them. I'm not happy. I'm not happy at all, but I have to live through this. And so I went from being completely devastated for my family, for my sister, for my brother-in-law on my birthday. So you think about, the birthday is when you talk about celebrating one's life. And then to hear that a member of your family lost their lives on that same day, that really presents an inner conversation and dialogue about the duality of things. And then I go on to start training in something that is a career that led me here to Nashville, that led me here to talk with you. And then I get to perform a passion of mine in front of so many people, friends, family. I was a teacher in New Mexico, so former students, so many people, and really have a wonderful show. So I'm going through this training. I'm doing last minute rehearsals and adjustments and thinking, no, I didn't think to block it out. Don't focus on what's at hand, block it out, and then come with it later. No, I let myself be there. So sometimes I was elated with all the excitement that was happening. And in other moments, I was a little solemn because of the loss that was there. That really culminated, it was in the midst of a really weird period of time because a few years before I started losing a lot of friends from high school, college, from the community in Albuquerque. A couple former students had passed. Death was very, very close to me. And I was beginning to have an understanding of it. And I took in, I wasn't as social as I used to be. In a manner to where it kind of prepared me for the pandemic that happened 6 months later. While a lot of people were getting adjusted to being in the house. I had been in the house. I had been contemplative about our own mortality for a few months, so it wasn't very new to me. And I think because of that, we at KUNM, we started a show called, at first it was called Your New Mexico Government. Then we changed the title to No More Normal. And it specifically was about the pandemic, how it's affecting people in all 360 degrees of the pandemic and how it hit us. And I think because I was able to go through that period of contemplation and initially start in September, I was able to perform my job much better when it came time to have conversations with people who were there. I was able to guide them. I couldn't give them clues and answers, but as someone who had been there before, just a little bit earlier than a lot of folks, it allowed me to guide them. And again, so here I sit, 5, 6 years later, grateful for one of the toughest experiences of my life.
And that's so much. Even hearing you talk, what I would imagine in those moments, feeling multiple things all at once, or maybe kind of oscillating back and forth between them, as you might say. And, I'm curious for you. It sounds like in the midst of that you were, tell me if I'm wrong, but that you were aware of the duality in the moment. Is that right?
Yeah.
You were.
Yeah. Very aware. Very aware. The idea of balance had been appearing in my life, like in that, even to the point where this might sound freaky to people, but And that as I'm falling to sleep, I heard a voice. I saw
Huh.
an image. My eyes are closed. I see this image pop up. I'm really close to just knocking out fully. I
Yeah.
see an image pop up and I hear a voice saying, "You will be complete when you find balance."
Hmm.
It's like, wow, okay. Didn't know what that meant. I was like, well,
Yeah.
if I find balance, my time on earth is over. What's going on? But the
Yeah.
idea of balance
Hmm.
truly began to emerge, and I saw it everywhere, and I just kind of accepted that. So when I'm in a moment like this, it's
Yeah.
like understand and find that balance out there, and it helped me because as being someone who's worked in news, I'm sure as you're familiar with as well. A lot of news people can be cynical because a lot of what they cover, report, and work on are stories about pain and trauma and not the nice things that happen in the world.
Yeah.
And some people who are within news and people who overly consume news can have this idea and belief that the world, for lack of a better phrase, is going to hell in a handbasket, that
Mm-hmm.
everything is horrible. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, there's balance. There's
Mm-hmm.
balance. There are,
Yeah.
there are miracles occurring the same time tragedies are. We just don't report on the miracles often.
Which I hate because I think to your point, it becomes very easy to get stuck in that cycle of negativity and cynicism. And thinking back to what you were just saying around when you kind of heard that voice, what do you feel like for you? Was there an incident or a period or something that kind of triggered you to start thinking, in that sense of balance? Or was it the culmination of multiple things over years that kind of led you to that recognizing of balance?
Yeah, I can't say it's one particular incident. It was a
Mhm.
lot of just reflecting. I'm the type of person who reflects
Mhm.
a lot,
Mhm.
sometimes too much. Like I don't know if you're like this. Sometimes
I am, I
I'll
can already
get back
tell.
from work or an event or something and just review all of my interactions on the day to make sure that, to see, I'm like, okay, sometimes you don't have to do that so much, Khalil.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm an entirely different person when I'm home than when I'm out, or even when I'm on air. I feel like I've
Yeah.
been the same person. But just reflecting on life, and when you get to be a certain age, you look at some of the happier moments of your life, and you look at some of the sadder moments of your life, and that's when I recognize I'm like, there's balance. When I was a teacher, teaching kids in Los Angeles who were kicked out of high school and had trouble, they often would talk metaphysically about what they wanted. I had kids from all over. I had kids from Compton and Watts, and Boyle Heights. I had kids from Beverly Hills and Bel Air, and
Mhm.
everybody, all of them, had troubled lives as young people, which is not something that I experienced. So I learned a lot
Mhm.
from them, and they would talk about how they just wanted to feel good. They just wanted to feel good, and that helped me understand that you really, it's an old adage, but you really don't know what bliss feels like until you understand what pain is.
Yeah.
And it's a part, and it's inescapable for
Mhm.
all of us. That's the thing. Yes, it's really nice to feel great. No one wants to subject themselves to feeling bad unless that's what they're led toward, or they're into. But you have to go through it all. And that's one thing that I would try to reassure my students with. I'm like, things will in life get better. Let's hope that they are. Let's teach you how to make them get better, and to incite that, and to bring it closer to them should they want to. But I can't say anything to my students without recognizing it and learning it for myself.
Mhm.
And then recognizing that and saying, like, this part of life sucks. You're not happy about it. Where can it get better? And getting that balance. And again, it is leading to what I understand and acceptance. And my philosophy that has grown over the years is what I call the universal record. Those are the things that actually happen. And they happened. So I have to adjust and adapt to what happened. How I feel about it necessarily doesn't matter, but it happened. There's two sides to a story: one person, person A, person B. Then there's actually what happened. That
Yeah.
is the universal record. That is the universal truth. And it's taken the idea and the concept of should and changed that. So
Hmm.
I rarely say what I should or someone should do. This was supposed to happen. That wasn't supposed to happen. Guess what? It did. If it wasn't supposed to occur, it wouldn't have, but it did. Okay. That's the reality I'm in. Let me deal with that. Now, did it occur and I had a particular amount of control over it. All right. So should I be in this situation again if it occurred and the result is favorable or unfavorable? What amount of control did I have over that, and what can I do for the next time to
Mm-hmm.
ensure that it's repeated or prevented, depending on what I desire? You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because therefore you're not necessarily submitting to fate. Because we are a part of that. You're not submitting to fate, but you're not dominating with free will.
Hmm.
You are loose. You are able to balance, to use the Bruce Lee quote. I'm going to probably paraphrase it because I might butcher it. He talks about being like a cork
Mm-hmm.
in a body of water in the ocean. Because what the cork stays at that level of where the water meets the air. But in
Oh.
troubled times, you're going to get buried. That cork is going to get submerged, but it will pop back up to the air. And in glorious times, the wave will take that cork way up into the air, but it will always come back to that state. And that's something that grew and continues to develop as I just live life and go through experiences, not only through my own stories, but hear of other people's stories and relate to them.
That's such a beautiful metaphor. I've never heard that. And I love that idea of the court because when you talk about balance, I mean, that's it, right? You're
Yeah.
balanced. You can have ups, you can have downs, and you will have both.
Yes.
But you always kind of, hopefully, in an ideal world, you come back to the balance. You come back to the middle. I love that. Talk to me a little bit about, I think you alluded to this a little bit, but what about that idea helped you? How did you connect that back to not using the ideas of should or this is supposed to or this should happen? Because I even find myself getting stuck in that. And I think a lot of people do as well. Like, even if you start to grow your thinking in this new way, you still kind of get stuck in that loop of, I should have done this or I should do this. Or so, how did you kind of combine those two things?
Well, one, having patience with oneself. If you're like, I should have done this or shouldn't. I mean, when I look at my place in chores and things,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you give yourself a little bit of a pass, but then you got to make it happen. It just really looking at life. And then particularly something that helped me grow at was my experience in Albuquerque as the host and producer of No More Normal. We talked to people. We decided anything that occurred during the pandemic was
Mhm.
pandemic related. Therefore, we just didn't
Yeah.
focus on the virus and how it was spreading and how it was impacting people's lives, the domestic and global economy. We talked about the election. We talked about
Mhm.
George Floyd. We talked about climate change. Everything that really came up during the pandemic, we focused on. And in moments like that, I'm hearing stories of pain. I'm hearing stories of joy. I'm hearing detailed stories of how things occurred for some folks. And I remember talking to everybody on the team who was mainly one brilliant journalist, Marisa DeMarco, but we had a few other people on the team who would help out occasionally. And we would just talk about the world and where we were at. And they were like, oh, I
Mhm.
can't believe that shouldn't have happened. And I didn't say anything yet because it was just beginning. I'm like, but it did. And
Yeah.
sometimes we focus a lot on the should or shouldn't
Mm.
because we feel. And yes, we're supposed to feel, that lets you know you're alive. But other times, if something tragic happens, we focus on our reaction to that. Let's have that reaction. But after a
Mhm.
while, we've got to take an action
Yeah.
in the result of what happened. And that's where my mind has been. And that's kind of how it began to really cements itself in my being, I should say. Well, I shouldn't say cement because that implies being rigid and stiff. Become a part of my bloodstream, so to
Mhm.
speak. It's kind of heavy. I don't really want to go too far, or people say woo woo, but I have thoughts about that as well. It's kind of like I was out there, I was going through all of this. I'm talking to my housemates. I was being looked at suddenly by people in the community as, hey, this is a person. I began to really understand what it meant to be the host of something because people listened to me regularly. I worked on this show um, 10, 11 hours a day,
Wow.
Monday through Saturday, even parts of Sunday. The only time I took a time off was we aired at 11 a.m. on Sundays. Only time I relaxed was at 10:30 when I knew the file was in and everything was good. We knew everything was going to play on time. And we gave ourselves the rest of that day, but Monday we were back at it. And I'm the type of person to where I didn't listen to that many episodes of No More Normal. I didn't listen to that, well, of This Is Nashville. Once I do it, I want to move on. I don't listen to the episode.
Mm-hmm.
My housemates listened. So it's Sunday, 11 o'clock. Last thing I want to do is hear what I had been working on the
Yeah.
previous week or the past couple of weeks. And I didn't. I was like, I don't want to listen to this, guys. And they said, you don't understand. We need to listen to it. Even though they were in the house and overheard me interview people,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? And they heard in conversations talking about the episode, they needed it. And I began to understand that relationship that people have with someone as a host, particularly a host that they like. You are their friend. You're
Mm-hmm.
their guide. Sometimes you're their confidant. You are their informant. You are helping them come in to approach things. And recognizing that that was a
Yeah.
responsibility to be away. And it was an honor that I took on because it was an opportunity to look at things differently for my own life
Mm-hmm.
and how I approach life. And it's like, okay, you're responsible in these ways. So obviously I'm going to comport myself in a manner that matches that. But in thinking, like, what's the best way I can help people during these times? These tools actually help me too. Help me
Mm-hmm.
understand life. I love hanging out with elders. I love hanging out with people who are older than me. I'm 51 years old. I love it when I hang out with someone and they're like, you're just a kid at 51. And I'm like, thanks, because comparatively I am,
Yeah.
and it feels great. And that's the one overwhelming lesson they all have is you're going to figure things out in life. Use all the experiences that you go through to help you figure it out. And you don't reach a point, you don't turn 76 and suddenly, oh, I've got it all figured out and I
Yeah.
know. No, you continue to grow. And what the ones who stay active and curious about life tell me as they
Mm-hmm.
get older is that you learn and discover a lot more as you go along. So I'm looking forward to that and kind of preparing myself for that. So I don't even know if that answers the question you asked, but
It does. I think it does. And I think all of that, I don't want to say backstory. I mean, backstory and like explanation, that helps me. Even as you were talking, I'm thinking all these things in my head of like, oh yes, I connect to that, or that makes a lot of sense. I've never thought of it like that. Cause I think you're so right. And I think it's so rare that it's one instance or experience that leads us to this new way of thinking, right? It's multiple experiences and then it's over time how that shapes you. And so I just think hearing your story and your growth and experience through that is really beautiful.
it's those things. I mean, how often does one thing really change us? We may look at
Mm,
that one thing, but that
yeah.
was a series of other things
Mm,
that set it up for us to get us there. And that's how we understand the lesson. And that is where wisdom comes in. You
mm,
had knowledge the few other times, the 10 other times you experienced something close to it. But when that final incident or that catalyzing incident occurs that really makes you think and stop and shift perspective on it, that's the beginning of wisdom.
yes. So you mentioned you are somebody who will sit and kind of think through like all of your interactions. And I really
Yes.
connect to that because I've talked about this a lot lately, but I'm really good at staying in my head and too much. And I say I'm really good at it because I need to stop. And I ruminate and I will sit there and I'm like, well, what did I say again? And why did I say that? And how did I interact? And I spend way too much time there. So I'm working to reel it back because what I found, and I have a question here, I promise, but what I found is I'm really good at identifying emotions in myself and others and why I'm feeling them and all these things, but I don't feel them. Like I have a hard time actually feeling them in my body. And
Mm.
I've worked through that a lot. And I'm curious as you talk, because you're talking about balance, right? Do you tend to be somebody who's up here or more in your body? And like, where is your more natural response and where have you had to work to get the balance? Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, so I too am someone who can spend too much time in
Mm-hmm.
my head. And as I look back and think about life, and sometimes when we reflect on these things, we think about the last 10 or 15 years. I go back to my earliest memories because there's things that happened to us, there's emotions we felt that we didn't have the vocabulary to explain. But as long as you remember what that incident was and what that incident felt like, now, many years later, you can describe what it was and help yourself a lot more. So I used to be in my head And then when I'm thinking back to incidents, I recognize, oh, my body, and when I was 6, told me
Mm-hmm.
I had this feeling in my body. This occurred. Oh, I understand now what that was about. And so, i.e., finding balance, I look at both. There's questions in my head. There's opportunity in front. What's going on? What does my body tell me? I listen to both. I can overanalyze, but
Mm-hmm.
I let my body be the determining factor to I don't let my body make the final call. My total being, I would say, makes the final call. But if I'm
Mm-hmm.
analyzing something in my head or overanalyzing something in my head, I stop and recognize where my body is. That is that balance that happens. Simple things. I think when I talk to people about it and they're like, how? I was like, when you're hungry and you think of things to eat, go there, start there. That's a wonderful test. So if you're hungry and you want food, you think of a burger. Think of eating a burger. Where'd you eat a burger? How does your body feel?
Mm-hmm.
Does your stomach get tight? Or do you feel loose? Because if you get tight and eat it, maybe that's not what you need at that moment. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's not what's going to work and why you feel bloated and a little bit off after that meal.
Yeah.
You know? It's
Yeah.
like simple things like that to pay attention to. Obviously, when we're instances of a lot of people play it off in work settings, social
Mm-hmm.
settings, romantic settings, and
Yep.
whatnot. What does your body tell you? And then what is your head telling you? I think all of us spend too much time in our heads, and therefore our heads can dominate everything, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it's like, yeah, heads know a lot. Our heads talk a lot. It's going to keep talking. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
keep talking. Sometimes that's not the way, and it's shutting down and listening. So I think it was over the years, and these are the type of conversations I have with my siblings. So someone discover something about all of the nerve endings that are open in your stomach. You have more there than some several places in your body. So that's why they call it a gut feeling. We go there with this type of stuff. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's been an ongoing practice and dialogues, I'd say, for probably 30 years with my siblings and
Wow.
I. Yeah.
Wow. So you were talking about this 30 years ago.
Yeah, this type of stuff. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
My parents introduced us to many, many schools of thought.
I love that.
It was beautiful. They introduced it to us and they said, you guys, here it is. There's no dogma that we're trying to give you. These are the
Yeah.
things that are out there. You can decide to go with it or not if you want
Mm-hmm.
to, you know? And we all have gone our different directions, but there is a home base that my siblings
Mm-hmm.
and I come back to all the time.
I want to pause here for a second because I know some of you listening are going to relate to this next part. You've built a good life. You're showing up for everyone else. Kids, partner, work, friends, and you've done all the right things to take care of yourself. The journaling, the workouts, the books, and yet you're still tired, still anxious, still feeling like you're running on fumes. If that's you, hear me now. You are not failing. You're just stuck in survival mode, and no amount of doing is going to work until your nervous system feels safe. That's exactly what you'll work on inside the Courageous Living group from Janice Holland. She's also known as the trauma teacher. She's a licensed psychotherapist and certified trauma model therapist who helps high-functioning women finally find relief. The Courageous Living group is a 60-day nervous system reset for women who are done overfunctioning, people-pleasing, and holding it all together. This group reset includes 8 weekly group sessions that are live, but are also recorded in case you can't attend the live sessions. You'll have lifetime access to the course portal, including replays, weekly journal prompts with integration practices, somatic healing tools, and a private WhatsApp group chat for support. Because you don't need to do more. You need to feel safe enough to receive the life you've already built. Click the link in the show notes below to get started. That's interesting because as you're talking, I'm wondering this idea of duality, this idea of bothness, and that it's not just, black and white, this or that, sounds like and tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it might have been easier for you to gravitate towards those types of ideas earlier on, potentially because you had parents that set up this way for you and your siblings of going, here are multiple ideas, take what you will. And I don't know that that's as common. I wish it were. But I think we all tend to say, here is what this family believes. Here's what this family does. This is our belief and tradition. And then your children kind of grow into that or they rebel or whatever. But I'm interested in kind of your perspective on that. And if you felt that that helped you in any way or hindered you or how that played into kind of your growth through the years.
We definitely did have the base set of rules as to what the Ekulonas do.
Sure, yeah.
It was like, hold on a second. There were things in the
Yeah.
family, and there's things, but my parents allowed us all our own creative,
Mm.
in our creative independence and ability to explore that in however we want. They were like, these are the values that the
Hmm.
family holds. However you want to go about upholding them, you can, and
Got
we
it.
will support you. You know, and it was, and people have taken these values, made them our own, but have specific ones. I've got a few siblings who have kids. They are expanding upon the values that our parents gave us when the raising of their kids, and I can see it. I'm like, oh, our parents didn't do that. They're taking this to the next level
Hmm.
because I think of what they were able to learn about themselves, about life, in the midst of, in its subsequent years from being younger and then ended up having kids of their own. They're also adapting and adjusting and living in the world that we're in now. And they're like, okay, this is the experience that they want for their kids in order to set their kids up, not just to be successful, but to have a life.
Hmm.
To have a life. The essential rule was you have to make the world a better place than you found it, but enjoy life while doing it. That's what mom and dad told us. So we all took it. It was that independence and freedom. It was that there's nothing that could be wrong ever. You know, go ahead and explore it. Okay, that's good. There's more and more levels to it. And also, can I say it was not like they sat us down and told us what wisdom is as compared to knowledge, but we grew up with a value for wisdom.
Hmm.
Wisdom was very valued. And also these type of things, like I have this saying about my clan where I say, Ekolonas are people where character reigns supreme and a well-timed joke is the only currency that truly matters. Because
I love that.
that's kind of how we are. Like people who are very serious people at times, but I
Hmm.
don't believe many of us take life too seriously,
Yeah.
even in the midst of the most horrific moments.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, this is it, but it's life. The adage of not the end of the world. I don't know how many times my mom, as we were adolescents, said that. She's like, "It's not the end of the world. You're going to be okay." And now looking back at it, it's like, yeah, you're right, mom. We adjusted to that, but having that patience, it wasn't flippant. It wasn't not
Hmm.
the end of the world. Just so you can shut up and leave me alone.
Right.
It was letting you know that if you're lucky, tomorrow is going to come and things will change. It was that. It was having an excitement for tomorrow, but also the patience to let tomorrow come.
Yeah. I love that because and even hearing how, these were our family non-negotiables. These were our values. These were the things we want that we are saying we as a family, this matters to us. And yet there's also no wrong in the sense that we want you to explore. We want you to see all that's out there and have this kind of thirst for life while also doing good. I just think that's so beautiful. That marriage of ideas is a really wonderful thing. So when you talk about, because I'm thinking back to, how you told the story of that week where all of these things kind of converged within 6 days at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And even hearing about your growing up, even hearing about how your kind of trajectory towards balance where it has led you, right, in life, and how you've tried to pursue that. I'm wondering, for example, in that week when all of those things are happening, some horrific, some tragic, I would imagine, immense amount of grief and loss, and also excitement for these two really great opportunities that you had. How did you logistically or realistically not just stop it all, right? Like let yourself be and ride the wave. How did you do that? Because I think so many people, the clients that I've seen, myself, it's much easier, I think, for people to do one of two other things, which is one, and this is where I tend to land, is you kind of go into protective mode, right? You go into like, I'm a crisis responder. That used to be one of my roles. And I'm like, you turn that down and like, I'm going to take care of everything. I'm going to handle everything. I'm going to get through this week, but I'll come back to that one. I'll come back to that later. I think that's one way of coping. And then another way is I'm going to cancel everything. I'm going to call out. I'm going to just sit in it and feel it. And you didn't do either. So how did you do that?
Well, I've done both before.
Yeah. Okay.
I definitely have done both. I mean, it had to get done. I'm training for my first day of training, and I'm a little bit off there explaining things. And the news director is like, "What happened?" And I tell her, she's like, "Do you want to do this? We can wait till next week." I said, "No, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do it because I know that." I don't want to sound sappy or cliche, but I know that my brother-in-law would have wanted me to go through and do it.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
but it's like, no, let me do this. This is here again. This happened. Let me go through this. And rehearsal was a little bit of a break, just getting to throw myself into music and
Mm-hmm.
performing.
Mm-hmm.
That was a bit of a break and whatnot. Yeah, that separated things for me. But then getting closer to the performance and the preparation, and everyone's excited, and I'm excited with them. But then there'd be a moment where, yeah, I'm excited, but I'm recognizing what I'm, and the people I was close to knew, you know, and they were, I did have support. I did have someone say, "Hey, you do it all right with all this. You got a lot going on. Are you okay? Let's sit down and talk, or we don't have to talk. I'm just going to be here." That's very helpful too.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I was like, okay, let me go through life. This is coming I recognize the timing of everything. And I was like, okay, this is a moment for you to change and grow and evolve, Khalil. This is what's going on. So go through and do. Go through and do. Things need to get done. You can't stop right now. Because trust me, I've been in moments where it's like, if nothing is pressing and I can stop, I will.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
important to give yourself that rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is because sometimes we push through and push through and push through and then feel, where's the time gone? I hear a phrase people talk about often when they push through particularly tragic situations to say where they lost themselves or they don't feel whole. I'm not going to say this for every human. I just, the idea of not being whole is foreign to me. It's a
Mm.
little bit off. I'm like, even though you go through stuff, you're still a whole human being. You
Mm-hmm.
may not feel all of yourself,
Yeah.
but you're whole. No, nothing's taken from you. But I've been in all the situations, and I've been in situations where, okay, let's just go get to work. Let's just go do the work to not think about things for a minute. And I feel like respond again, listening to your body,
Mm-hmm.
respond in that best way. But for me, it was get it done because I believe in following week, I took some time. I was working. Obviously, I took some time that I was doing the morning edition, filling in for the regular host. I did that a couple times, and that's such a weird shift because you're at the station at 3:30 in the morning,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's beautiful though because like by 9, 10 o'clock you're done with your day, and the rest of the day is there. And it wasn't to the point where that was my daily thing, so
Mm-hmm.
that was a really unique experience and allowed me an early morning walk to help clear my head walking back home from the station. But I just find that we all have to find the way that works best for us. For me, it's assessing things. What role do I have to play? What's there? Because it's not, again, I'm not really going to block it out. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to block it out to shield myself from recognizing and feeling any pain. Now, there's been a lot of moments during that time too, particularly that week after a lot of moments I would be at home and suddenly a rush of sadness comes over me and there's tears,
Mm-hmm.
or a rush of joy and happiness comes over me and there's laughter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I find that in some of the sometimes intense grief and crying can sound like laughter. It can
Mm-hmm.
feel like
Yeah.
laughter. And I'm like, whoa, that was one of those moments. Well, something happened years before, but it let me know those moments. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, this is strange. Okay, I recognize the relationship of these two things. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they're not necessarily separate from each other. They're combined. When I'm in this experience again, let me pay attention to that. Let me honor that, and let me just be it. And I guess I don't know. Maybe right now I'm in like an autopilot phase with it all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think about it so much,
Yeah.
and that's what I love. I'm stopping. I'm ceasing the overthink,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm being a lot more these days.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, and I guess that's kind of why I was asking, is because I think a lot of people will resonate with that idea, right? Of we all tend to be here. And I think a lot of people that I've spoken to, and I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast are in that space of, I want to kind of get more in touch with feeling and being and
Yeah.
be more whole, not more whole, but more holistic in our approach, right? Of how do we combine what's up here with our body, with our gut, with all these other pieces that I think we have so often. I think especially, more so women, as I've spoken to, have a harder time with this of like letting themselves come down and reconnect. And so I think hearing you talk is really wonderful because it's not only connecting to your experience, but also going, okay, this is what he went through. This is how he's kind of moved through it. And I think that's really helpful for people to hear the work they did to connect the two.
Yeah. But that's the thing. We're already connected. Again,
Yeah,
how can
yeah,
we
yeah,
not be
that's true.
whole? Our mind, our
Yeah.
body, our spirits, all of this stuff is already connected. Part of our society,
Mm,
part of our education, part of how we decide right now as human beings to live life. Because who says that the way we're living life across the planet is the ultimate design for human beings? It's just what we're doing right now. And we think this is the best version yet. I have a lot to say that in contrary to that, you know?
yeah.
Because if this is the best version like this, I don't necessarily know if we're having this conversation. You see what I'm
Mm,
saying?
mhm,
It is
mhm.
a point to like, it's like, oh, there's more evolution that we need to do. We
Sure.
tend to compartmentalize so many parts of our
Yeah.
entire being that we
Yeah.
can feel disconnected from everything. But it's like, no, baby, we are all connected. It has always been connected. You have been taught a way of experiencing life and being
Mhm.
conscious in a manner that disconnects things because the current societal construct says that
Yep.
your job is important, taxes are this or you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
breaking
Oh,
it all
yeah.
down, and it's preventing us from being actually whole all the time, which we are.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that because, you're right. It's not that we're even thinking of myself or others that I've spoken to, it's not that we're disconnected. It's almost more like, as you were saying it, I was thinking, when you go and get dental work done and you get the numbing, like you get some numbing, whatever, I don't know, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's almost like you're still whole, you just can't feel that, and you have to like work to feel that again, right, as
Yes.
the medicine wears off. And I'm almost imagining that's kind of what it's like. We are whole even though we feel disconnected because of
Yes.
these things we've been taught and shown, and society's expectations, but we have to focus so hard in the beginning to feel it again. Even though it's there, it's just you have to pay attention to what that feeling is.
You do. And some people will put themselves into extreme situations to get that
Mm,
feeling, to kind of jumpstart that feeling, you know?
yeah, that's a
And
good
it's like,
point.
it's also like remembering what the feeling was like, because it may not be exactly the same when you encounter it again or you create it again, but it will be something different. Okay. Remembering what that was like, remembering. And sometimes we want to shut off, particularly the more troublesome emotions or the ones that we know we can get caught up in, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
Now the idea of love and adoration, like in dating, people talk about love bombing. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, oh, that's kind of, and I get it, but it's like, yeah, you get swept up in the first 3 weeks
Mhm.
of this person is awesome. And I know that's not realistic. I'm like, but why can't it be? Why
Yeah,
can't you be absolutely silly infatuated to where
yeah.
suddenly you're acting like you're in the third grade?
Mhm.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And I think, okay, connect to that emotion and see
Yeah,
what it is. Is that an energy and an emotion that can last forever? No, it can't. But know what it's like so you can create it again,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, at will.
And I mean, even like I recently took my kids to their first time to a amusement park, and I'm like, you can't ride on a roller coaster and experience that level of thrill and excitement and adrenaline all of the time of your life,
Yeah.
but you can enjoy it while it's happening.
Yes, you can.
And I think similarly to what you were saying, and going back to like when I first met my husband, I'm like, oh, people were probably so annoyed to be around us. They were like, go away. Y'all are acting crazy. But yet we did it and we enjoyed it. And of course, that's not how our relationship is now. It's different. It's wonderful and beautiful, but it's different.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, that's okay, is kind of thinking back to like the waves, right? Like, not even that it's a low point necessarily, but sometimes you'll go really, really high. Sometimes you'll be kind of normal, and
hmm
sometimes you'll have low. So I think that's a really great way to view it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, it's definitely not pessimistic, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's curious. It's curious. I mean,
Yeah.
what is this feeling? And I'm going to let myself feel it and
Yeah.
remember it.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I'm led by inspiration. I'm inspired to feel these things.
Hmm.
I'm inspired to recognize this is what this is, and keeping that, we all have our daily running dialogue with ourselves, but keeping that understanding and like, okay, I used to use it as a checklist of this is where you've grown, Khalil. Now I'm like, no, I'm gonna stop with all that. I'm gonna stop filling out some checklist or my
Yeah.
own or even reciting my own human resume to myself. Nah, just keep on living. If I make it to be 89, 90 some years old, then I can look back and say, okay.
Mhm.
But in the meantime, I'm just going to keep on living
Yeah.
and figure it out.
I mean, it seems like you're pretty good at being present in the moment. Would you say that's true?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Not always. Not always. I like to think about the future. I like to ruminate on the past, but recognizing that the present is the only thing that I have in an infinite supply of, you
Hmm.
know? It's
Yeah.
infinite. Right here. Be right here, right now. It's the only
Mhm.
place. I think that's what helped me be pretty good at my job in interviewing people. Is
Yeah.
here we are. We're right here, right now. That's all we have is right here, right now. Who am I going to be? Let me show up in all of those ways, not only for the other person, but myself, and let me
Mhm.
experience life. That's what we have. And it's allowed me to put regret in its proper place
Hmm.
and also put hopes in their proper place.
I like that. Yeah, it's interesting too because as you were saying that, I'm like, gosh, obviously, I think we all know how we can get caught up in regret, but I think we sometimes forget that you can get equally caught up in your hopes for something or
Yes.
your hope and expectation of that hope, right? To like
Yes.
show up in a certain way. And I do think that's often a way we forget that we can get caught up, right?
Yeah.
Because we think it's quote positive versus the other as, negative. And it's just interesting that either one you can easily get caught up in and what you do have is the present.
You have the present, have your hopes for the future.
Sure. Yeah.
Learn what you have to do for the past. Learn what you have to learn from the past.
Mhm.
Have hopes for the future. Live your day. You can
Mhm.
also live your day like whatever you desire in the future is already there, has already appeared, has already happened. What's that like? If you want to have, you know, $10 million, but you don't right now. What's it like how would you act differently? How would you act if you had $10 million? Is it about purchasing things or is it about how you walk down the street? Is it
Yeah.
about how you treat certain items in your home? Are you the type that when I have $10 million, everything is disposable because I could just buy more for a certain amount of time, or I will care for those things I have? You can act in that way now.
Mhm.
And then when things occur, it's not new. It's like, oh yeah, it's we can seamlessly transition ourselves into the things that we want as long as we prepare ourselves for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what would you say to those that might be struggling with this idea of bothness or the tension of this and that? Like, what would you say to somebody who's in that space, just having gone through the multiple experiences that you have where you felt this?
First thing I say is have patience with yourself and then have patience with the world. Sometimes what I found most often is when folks are struggling with this idea of bothness, a lot of times it comes down to what people think they deserve. You know, I did or didn't get something. Have patience. Reflect again. Use the opportunity to reflect. Did I really, as much as I wanted it, because our wants can cloud, like the idea of deserve, did you earn it? Did you really? And if it didn't happen, okay, why? And was that good? Were you ever in a moment where you wanted something so badly with so much desire and it didn't happen and you were grateful that it didn't? You know? Because I think we have those moments where it's like, I'm actually glad that didn't take place, or "Ooh, missed
Mhm.
that by the skin of my teeth." We got the phrase and adages for it. That happens a lot
Yeah.
in recognizing, and yeah, primarily have patience with yourself, and you don't got to drill and ask yourself questions. Counseling helps a lot of people out. It's a wonderful thing. I don't necessarily think in all circumstances you got to do a whole bunch of counseling to it,
Mhm.
One way I could do is find an older person. Find a person at least 20 years older than yourself that you
Yeah.
can talk to about these things. And it's not and just I'm telling you, you don't get to be old being a fool. They have the most wonderful things to say to us.
Yeah, they do.
They have guidance. They have been there before. They have been your age before. Yes, the society and the world was different, but okay, whatever. There are some of these lessons. The entirety of this conversation you and I are having right now, Nikki, is as old as time.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it won't change. It will be no different 500 years from now. humans haven't evolved. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Sure.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's just, yeah, there's specifics to our situation, but these are still the same thing.
Hmm.
Find an older person, have patience with yourself, and yeah, be curious to find balance and set into balance. And if balance is uncomfortable for you, find out why.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
accept with whatever you discover.
That's a big one.
Yes.
And
Yes.
what I think my last question for you would be, what is something that you are still learning, that you are still in process with?
That is a good question. What am I still learning? What am I still in process with? I'm still learning myself.
Yeah.
What I'm learning about myself is that I'm coming back to more parts of me, that more and more parts of who I've always been, but more parts of me that I've recognized from like 9, 10 years old.
Hmm. Yeah.
Certain things would occur with friends and stuff I'd see, and I'm like, this didn't settle with me. I saw everybody else get it just didn't settle with me. It's like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to do something a different way. And I'm coming back to a lot of that. I recognize how that was never gone, but you live life. You rebel a little bit in your teens
Hmm.
and 20s. You do things a little bit differently in your 30s and 40s. You come down to a place. But now in my 50s, I'm seeing who I always have been. Really, those parts of what we call morals and values that have always been a part of me. And it's like, yeah, Khalil, do that. No matter how it may appear socially, how it may feel socially because of that. Just be that because it's who you are. Does it matter that everyone else is doing it or not? I've always been the type of person that if everyone was like, oh my God, this is great, this shiny object, we're all going to the right, I automatically would have left
Hmm.
because I just didn't trust
Yeah.
the large swathes of people who would change direction so easily.
Sure. Yeah.
Lemmings, I would call them. And I'm like, yeah, that's not me. And like, okay, that is always so, be brave enough to go out on your own path with whatever you want to believe or live, particularly as long as it's good for yourself and other people. And thinking about that, I mean, I'm a romantic. And I just been an idea that's been on my mind lately is like, man, romance is gone. Now, I know it's not dead,
Hmm.
but romance is gone. Romance in our popular culture and our entertainment
Yeah.
sphere is absolutely gone.
Yeah.
And then I hear of dating woes, and I'm like, I wonder why. I
Hmm.
wonder why we have these difficult situations in the dating world where romance is gone. And I'm a romantic. And I was told for years and years and years, don't be a romantic, don't be a romantic and whatnot from all sorts of people. And guidance, and finding love and stuff. But I'm like, you know what? No, but that's not who I am.
Mm. Yeah.
So I'm going to be that. I'm going to continue to be who I am and live life and accept with whatever happens. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to
Hmm.
accept that. I'm not going to stop it off. So yeah, I'm learning a lot about myself and having more and more patience with myself in that because there's a lot more to understand. There's a lot more to grow. Um, yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, thank you for being so vulnerable, for being so open and honest and sharing all of your experiences and your stories and your learning and what you're still learning. And I think I could sit here and talk to you probably forever. I would just like, you're just so easy to talk to. And I feel like you do have so much wisdom and so much to share. So thank you so much for just taking the time to do that with me.
I'm really grateful that you asked me to do this. I had an absolute blast. This is a lot of fun, and I could talk with you as well. I feel like I know this is the first time we've met, but it doesn't feel like it at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. I
you
agree. I
know,
agree.
and I
Well,
like
thank
that.
Yeah, thank you. I do too. And one thing I don't want to forget is I ask every guest this at the very end, but it's called ridiculous or relatable. It does not have to be connected at all to this conversation, but is there something that you do that is a quirk, an irrational fear, something, a habit or something that you do that is completely ridiculous, but might be a little bit relatable to somebody?
I was thinking about this, okay, and I was like, Khalil, which like quirks or habits that I do, and which is just like low grade OCD, you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
know?
That's the stuff I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
Because I was like, hold on a second, which one is which? Because I have these little thing of I wear contact lenses, and I remember I was talking to a sibling recently, and we were talking about relationships. I'm single, one day. She's like, what kind of woman did you want? I said, I want the kind of woman that will ask me why my contact lens case covers are green and blue. Why they're green and blue and not the other ones? And my sister's like, why? And I'm like, well, green has red R in it, so that's right. Blue has an L, that's the left one. Little things like that.
Yeah.
I'll set things up like that I notice, but I'm like, I guess my imaginary wife or girlfriend, I'm like, does she notice that too? Or will someone notice this tiny little thing that I've done for a simple, small, ridiculous, probably too many steps or OCD organization tech? Little things like that. Yeah, my inner dialogue and conversation with myself is all over the map. If my inner dialogue and conversation were a text thread, you would not want that published.
Yeah, same.
Because it's like, oh, but like tiny little games. Something that I do is like if you're driving, say you're driving on a freeway and you go under an underpass, I'll count how long it takes to get through to the next side. You know what I mean? And like little weird, and I've done this since I was a kid. And I keep doing them. Yes, little things like that I keep doing. What's another thing that I time myself going to the grocery store again like a kid. Like, oh, am I going to do this? Time me. And they count and you go run and do this stuff and come back.
So funny.
I will time myself going to the grocery store for certain things.
Like, do you try to make it quicker than last time, or do you just time it just to see?
I just time it just to see. You know? Because I don't want to rush through and stuff, and at different times of the day. Like, obviously, going to the grocery store at 8 o'clock in the morning is the best, y'all. Trust me. It's the bomb.
Sure. Yeah.
Do it. You'll be with a lot of older people. You can make a new friend and get some wisdom. And they have everything. Everything is freshly stocked. They're not going to be out. So that's different than going at 6:30 or 5:30 when there's a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And I just time the experience. If I'm getting one item or a bunch, I'm like, all right, here's set a timer. Okay. Just to see. There's no study.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good. You made me think of one. My sister, when I was a kid, she told me that, now, of course, this isn't true, but as a kid, you believe it. She said, you have to hold your breath when you drive by a graveyard so that you don't, I don't know, breathe in a spirit or something. I don't know what she told me, right? So I remember for years, I would hold my breath, through the length of a graveyard. And sometimes there'd be a stoplight and I was like, I can't do it. But I find myself still instinctively, like, if I'm driving by, I'll like get ready and hold my breath. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this isn't, why do I still believe this? But funny things like that.
It is fun. It is fun. That's funny. Yeah. My dad says prayers will be past graveyards and stuff.
That makes more sense. Yeah, that I can get behind that. I don't know why she taught me to not breathe.
The siblings, man, that's what they're for. They tell you stuff that you find out years later. You're like 35 and you're like, that was not true.
I know.
I believed that my entire life. And they're just laughing. It's that's what they're for, man. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. This was such a great time and I just loved having you.
I really enjoyed this. Thank you a lot, Nikki. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
If this conversation today resonated with you, make sure and follow Khalil on Instagram at Khalil Ekulona and keep an eye out for his upcoming podcast, Be Good to Each Other. You can also explore his past work from This Is Nashville and No More Normal. It would mean the world to me if you could support the show and help it grow. First, please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts because your words help new listeners to find us. Second, share the episode with someone who might need it, because that's how this community grows, through real people, real stories, and honest conversations shared from one person to another. Finally, make sure you follow the show so you never miss an episode. Just tap the little plus sign or follow button on the main show page. These really are the most impactful things that you can do for the podcast. So thank you again for listening. And this week, take some time to recognize what in your life is full of bothness. And remember, it's okay to feel all the things, because so many times in life, it isn't either or. It's both.